Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit, and welcome to another weekend book review. I'm Pavlov.
And I'm Nikita. April 22nd, 2025. A date now, marked by such tragedy. In the Bizaran Valley near Pahalgam, Kashmir, militants from the resistance front attacked tourists. They used military-grade weapons, and 26 people killed.
It's just terrific, and it's the first major attack on civilians there since Article 370 was abrogated back in 2019.
Exactly. It really forces us to look again, doesn't it? What's driving this kind of violence? What are the deeper currents?
Well, that's what we need to explore. Today we're going deep into something that often stays hidden, the financing. Terror financing in Kashmir.
Right. Because behind attacks like this, there's always money. There has to be.
Absolutely. And we'll be drawing heavily on Abhinav Pandya's book, Terror Financing in Kashmir, to try and piece together how this complex system works.
Okay, so following the money trail, what are we hoping to uncover? What's the scope here?
We'll look at how terror funding in Kashmir has changed over the years, alongside the conflict itself, the methods they use, the groups involved.
And the bigger picture, the implications.
Exactly. The idea is to give you, the listener, a clearer picture of this whole intricate issue without getting completely bogged down in jargon.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start maybe with some history. This conflict, this violence, it didn't just start yesterday.
Not at all. You really have to go back decades to understand the roots. Think about 1947, the invasion by Pashtun tribesmen and Pakistani irregulars. That led to terrible violence, looting, killings.
And eventually the line of control, the Lasi.
Precisely. That division and the wars that followed between India and Pakistan just kept fueling the conflict and the grievances.
And alongside the political conflict, there was a shift in ideology, too.
Yes, definitely. Over time, we saw the rise of a more fundamentalist Islamism in the valley. The Muslim United Front, the MUF, formed in '87. Their goal was openly an Islamic state. And this was happening at the same time as a really disturbing campaign against the Kashmiri Pandits. They were being called kafirs, non-believers.
Awful.
There were riots, like in Anantnag in '86. It created this climate of intense fear and hostility for the Pandit community.
Which sets the stage for the mass displacement we hear about.
Yes, around 1990. Hundreds of thousands, maybe 300,000, forced to flee. Pakistan-sponsored terrorists were heavily involved in the threats and violence.
And death tolls vary, right?
They do. The official JK government figure is about 219 Pandits killed between 1990 and 2004, but unofficial estimates are much higher, maybe 1,200 or so. The key thing, though, is that this radicalization, it wasn't just a reaction to the '87 elections. It built up over decades. Communal polarization, Islamization. It was a long process.
So Pakistan then capitalized on this situation.
It seems that way. From 1990, they were apparently quite surprised by how many local Kashmiris actually wanted to go for training in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
Really? That many?
A significant number, yes. It marked a real escalation. And if you look at the period between 1990 and 2019, the human cost of this proxy war is staggering. Over 41,000 casualties, more than 71,000 incidents. Just terrible numbers.
And the groups involved changed too. Less secular separatism, more jihadist.
That's right. The movement shifted. You saw groups like Hizbul Mujahideen, HM, then Lashkar-e-Taiba, Latati, Jaish-e-Mohammed, JEM, and now these proxy fronts, like the resistance force, the group behind this latest attack. Plus, you even have local groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS appearing.
So with this changing conflict, how did the way they got money change? How did the financing evolve?
Well, it got more sophisticated over time. Initially, say 89 to 95, it was really just about setting up ways to fund these early groups, the tanzims, basic fundraising.
But then things shifted, maybe around the late 90s, early 2000s?
Yes, exactly. Post 1999, 2000, you see a big influx of money, much more openly coming from Pakistan. This also happened when lots of foreign terrorist NFTs from Lati and JEM started arriving in Kashmir.
And Pakistani leadership was openly supporting some of these groups then.
Yes, Musharraf, who was leading Pakistan, publicly backed Lati and its leader, Hafiz Saeed. Intelligence suggests Pakistan's ISI had pretty tight control over these groups, using them as their main spearhead in the conflict.
We hear a lot about the drug trade funding terror globally. Was that a factor in Kashmir too?
It was, especially early on. In the 90s, drugs were sometimes seized from militants near Jammu and the northern borders.
Yeah.
Reports suggest ISI handlers gave drugs to militants, even porters.
But that changed.
It evolved. Around 96, the channels for drugs and weapons fighters started to separate more. But groups like HM and Lanidi were still involved in moving drugs. There were even allegations about drug and chemical exchanges with the Taliban after they took power in Afghanistan in '96. And the Lasi trade which we need to talk more about, became a key route for drug smuggling too.
So even when other funding from Pakistan faced crackdowns, drugs remained attractive. Why?
Huge profits. Simple as that. Selling just 1 kilo of heroin could bring in, reportedly, 5 to 7 crore rupees. That's a massive amount.
Wow.
Intelligence suggests ISI elements, corrupt officials, they'd all take their cut. But it's important to say directly linking specific drug money to specific terror acts is often tricky. It's often based on strong suggestions, but hard proof can be elusive.
Okay. What about Hawala, that informal money transfer system? Was that used much?
Oh, definitely. Hawala was significant. Money often started in places like Saudi Arabia or the Gulf. It would flow through Kashmiri businessmen in Dubai, maybe Riyadh, even Nepal.
And these businessmen, or maybe charities donating, might not even know where the money was really ending up.
Sometimes, yes. The system is layered, often undocumented, so the person moving the money or the charity thinking it's for a religious cause might be unaware. But you can be sure the key people in the network knew exactly who the end user was, the terror groups.
You mentioned the lost trade before, that cross-border trade. How did that get exploited?
Right, the line of control trade. It was set up as a barter system meant to build connections, but it was heavily exploited for terror financing, for weapons smuggling.
How did the financing part work with barter?
Well, the barter system made it easy to cheat on the value of goods, massively. So a trader in Kashmir might bring in goods worth, say, 10 lakh rupees from the Pakistani side, but declare them as only worth 1 lakh. That difference, the 9 lakh minus commissions, would then get passed on to terror groups or their operatives. The ISI supposedly compensated the trader on the other side. And Hawala operators in big Indian cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Surat, they helped move this money to the separatist leaders and their workers in Kashmir.
And weapons came through this route too.
Yes, absolutely critical for weapons smuggling. They'd often break down weapons, AK-47s, grenades, pistols, hide the parts in the trucks. There were accounts of an ISI workshop near Chakothy specifically for this.
So they'd smuggle parts across the Uri border, places like that?
Exactly, and the price difference was huge. An AK-47 costing maybe 8,000 rupees in Pakistan could sell for 45,000, even 60,000 in Kashmir. Big profits to fund more activities. Plus, fake Indian currency, FICN, and just bundles of cash often came through the Chakandabad crossing point too.
So this trade, meant for peace, became a lifeline for the conflict.
Sadly, yes. Banning it in 2019 was a major blow to that specific channel.
It's incredible, the range of methods. You mentioned something surprising earlier, college admissions. How on earth did that work?
It sounds bizarre, doesn't it? But yes, getting Kashmiri students into medical and engineering colleges in Pakistan became another funding stream. Hurriyat leaders would allegedly recommend students for a hefty fee.
How much are we talking?
It started lower, maybe 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees, but reportedly it went way up 5 to 8 lakh for families of dead militants, maybe 15 to 25 lakh for others. Engineering seats, around 10 to 12 lakh. Even lower-level separatist figures apparently got in on it, basically selling access to education across the border.
Unbelievable. So, okay, we've seen the methods. Let's talk about the organizations driving this. Who are the key players in this financial network?
Several stand out. Jamaat Islami, or GI, was hugely influential in spreading the jihadi ideology, the radicalization. They had people everywhere. Administration, schools, finance, politics.
Weren't they linked to Hizbul Mujahideen?
Reported to be very close, yes. And also alleged links to the growth of the PDP party. There are serious allegations that JI works systematically to get its members into government jobs, especially in education, through schemes like Robbery Talim.
So influence within the system itself.
Significant influence, according to reports. A high percentage of JI cadres in schools, higher education, accusations of controlling appointments, admissions at Kashmir University, using these places to push their ideology. Members supposedly even donated part of their salary back to JI.
And their reach went beyond Kashmir, to the U.S., Turkey.
It did. Links with groups in the U.S. like ICNA, the Islamic Circle of North America. ICNA denies direct ties, but analysts point to overlaps in membership, funding, ideology, suggesting it acts as a JI proxy. They hold big conferences, sometimes featuring extremist clerics.
And Turkey.
Connections there too, with Turkish Islamist groups and charities. There were reports the ISI helped Kashmiris get to Turkey to study or work, and some then got involved in anti-India activities. Canada also comes up as a place used to route funds to groups in Kashmir.
Okay, what about Al-Hadith? You mentioned them earlier.
Yes, their influence grew, pushing a more Wahhabi-style radicalism. Some ultra-Salafist factions within Ali Hadith, like Defy Jamiat and Bezami Tawhid are allegedly linked directly to militant groups like ISJK and Ansar Ghazwatul Hind, getting funds from Pakistan.
Where did their funding come from?
Connections to Saudi Wahhabi clergy are mentioned. Funding also reportedly came via Hajj pilgrimage tours and cash smuggled through the log sea trade, especially near Uri. And Lashkar-e-Taiba, Lati, has cultivated ties with various Ali Hadith groups in Kashmir.
Right, and then the big militant groups themselves, Lati.
The Lati is often described almost as a terror industry under ISI patronage. It's considered one of the richest, most secure terror outfits in South Asia. They have fundraising cells in the Gulf, which were also involved in planning attacks, like the 2008 Mumbai attacks.
And they invest their money.
Yes, reportedly in things like real estate in Pakistan. Their recruitment often used false stories about Muslims being persecuted in India, and they work closely, operationally, with Jaish and Hizbul Mujahideen.
And Jaish-e-Mohammed.
That group emerged after Masood Azhar was released in that IC-814 hijacking back in '99. Its members came from older groups like Harkatul Ansar. The relationship with the Pakistani state is complex, sometimes murky, but they draw huge support from radical Deobandi elements in Pakistan.
And the Resistance Front, the group from the recent attack.
As we said, widely seen as a proxy for Lasai, a way for Latupi to operate perhaps with a degree of deniability.
It's a chilling network. But you also suggested it wasn't just these specific groups that mainstream institutions got drawn into.
That's one of the most disturbing aspects, yes. Allegations against mainstream political parties sheltering militants, funding them, using them to intimidate voters, even supposedly organizing stone pelting to engineer boycotts.
Really? Using party resources?
Reports mention party vehicles used to move militants, weapons. There was even a major investigation involving a PDP leader accused of supplying weapons to Hizbul Mujahideen.
What about schools and universities?
Educational institutions run by Jamaat and Ali Hadith were accused of teaching very hardline interpretations, even if they looked modern on the surface, fostering pan-Islamist views. And those allegations about Jamaat's control over Kashmir University are serious.
And financial institutions. Even banks.
Yes, there was a case involving XYZ bank allegations of dodgy recruitment, favoring relatives of militants, fraudulent loans. Even the media wasn't immune claims of Pakistani funding for some local outlets and journalists, suspicious money flows involving private schools linked to separatists, and funding for online propaganda, cyber jihadis like that Kashmir Fight blog which used to threaten people.
It paints a picture of, well, infiltration. This financing network seems to have permeated many parts of society.
It does suggest a deep level of entrenchment, making it incredibly difficult to root out.
So what's actually been done to fight this, to counter this financing?
Well, there are efforts on multiple fronts. You have international bodies like FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, setting standards, and the UN's Counterterrorism Center. In India, the NIA, the National Investigation Agency, has been very active investigating these cases.
But it's not easy.
Not at all. An IMF report pointed out weaknesses in global anti-money laundering and counter-terror finance systems generally. Remember Osama bin Laden saying they'd exploit weaknesses in Western finance? Same principle applies.
What specific steps has India taken?
Things like demonetization, banning Jamaat-e-Islami, the NIA crackdown, banning the law sea trade. These have definitely had an impact, disrupted flows, but huge challenges remain.
Like what?
The secrecy, obviously. These are illegal operations. Funds get siphoned off, moved through complex layers. Increased surveillance makes moving large amounts of cash harder, but they adapt. And as we mentioned, proving the direct link between, say, drug money and a specific bombing is still very difficult.
So what's the focus now?
The NIA seems to be targeting the top leadership of the separatist movement, cutting off the head, so to speak. But it requires real expertise, finance, IT, understanding cryptocurrencies now, too, and much better coordination between the NIA, state police, the Narcotics Control Bureau.
And stepping back, what was Pakistan's big picture goal in funding all this for so long?
The argument in the book is largely geopolitical. Bleed India economically. Keep India bogged down, spending huge amounts on security in Kashmir. It's classic asymmetric warfare. Training a terrorist is far cheaper than the cost of deploying security forces to counter them. Exploiting the shared religious identity was also a key part of that strategy.
The book uses accounts from ex-militants too. What do we learn from their perspective?
That's fascinating stuff. They give you the ground level view. Details like monthly payments to active militants, maybe 10,000, 15,000 rupees. Lump sums for families if a militant died, maybe 200,000 rupees. Plus a small monthly pension. How the overground workers, the OGWs, are paid.
Where do they say the money came from?
Donations from individuals, charities in the Gulf, Militants coming across from Palke, bringing cash, drugs, sometimes gold. They also talk about the network of sympathizers inside state institutions back before Article 370 was removed. And they mention the Hurriyat having surprising influence, even high up in Delhi.
Did they talk about why they joined or why they left?
Some did. Often there's a sense of disillusionment. The reality on the ground didn't match the propaganda they were fed. They also confirmed the money wasn't just for fighters. It paid for Hurriyat expenses, pensions, protests, charities, media work. And they consistently point to the lossy trade as a massive channel for illicit funds and goods.
Okay, so wrapping this up, it's clear this isn't a simple issue. Terror financing in Kashmir is incredibly layered.
Absolutely. You've got multiple sources, constantly evolving methods, different organizations involved, some obvious, some hidden. And understanding this financial plumbing is just essential if you want to grasp why the violence persists, why we see tragedies like the one on April 22nd.
It really brings it home. So as we leave our listeners to think about this, what's the big takeaway? The final thought?
I think the crucial question, given how deep these financial roots go, how intertwined they are with various institutions, is what are the truly effective long-term strategies?
Yeah.
How do you dismantle these networks sustainably? How do you prevent future tragedies?
It's not just about chasing the money, is it?
No. It requires constant analysis, adapting to new methods, probably looking at the ideologies too, the vulnerabilities that let these financial systems thrive in the first place. It's a complex problem that unfortunately isn't going away quickly. It needs sustained attention. And don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for more captivating deep dives like this one. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and keep revising and resubmitting.